Hello and welcome to this review of For We Are Many. This is the second by Dennis E. Taylor in the Bobverse series. It's a fun cover. I'm not getting good luck without the reflection. There we go. Yeah, maybe for a second. Anyway, for the first one in the series, I really enjoyed, as I said. It was a book by sci-fi nerd for the worldwide community of sci-fi nerds, with lashings of significant geekdom in non-sci-fidom on the side. So you've got a character who names himself after Homer Simpson, you've got Bert and Ernie and other stuff, but predominantly it goes for sci-fi references. And because of these multiple geeky references, the book manages a light-hearted, humorous type feel without being overtly funny or comedic, and that works well for me because a lot of the supposedly funny books leave me a little bit cold. This managed to strike the right balance between light and humorous. I really wish that I'd made a note as I was reading of all the many geeky references. Taylor kept mentioning various classic sci-fi authors. I think Simak was one of them. Was Ray Bradbury another one, or Philip K. Dick? I don't know. He keeps mentioning them, and he keeps throwing in other little references that delight my sci-fi heart. So what happens in For We Are Many is that Bob and his many replicants have been spreading out from Earth for 40 years now, looking for habitable planets, which is what they planned on and what they were charged with doing, and that was their whole reason for being. But in the meantime, other stuff has happened. So Bob goes out, but by the time he sends information back, there's a worldwide, actually a Sol system-wide war has killed off 99.9% of the human race. A nuclear winter is slowly making its way across Earth, which will soon become uninhabitable. And so one particular replicant who has named himself Will Riker and a few other Bobs dedicate their Bobdom, I suppose, to guarding Earth, refereeing the UN as to who can and can't emigrate, putting together 2 colonization ships which are piloted by 2 Bobs, and putting together some... Are they Dyson rings? I can't remember. Farms in space to feed the population, which is suffering. So you've got these multiple balls in the air for the people who are overseeing Earth. And in this one, oh yes, also on Earth, there's a radical group with an acronym for a name. They think that humans had their go, and now that they've failed, they need to give up. Vehement, that's it. Voluntary extinction of human existence means Earth's natural transformation to glaciation. But whatever. Anyway, they're a terrorist organization, and their goal is to get rid of humanity once and for all. So that's part of the many balls in the air that the Bobs in the solar system are dealing with. 2 habitable planets have been found, and you've got other Bobs overseeing the colonization there. The original Bob is off on his own journey. He meant it to be a life of exploration, boldly going where no Bob had gone before. But instead he made first contact with another intelligent species, and now he's become deeply involved in their continuation, because it looked like they were going extinct when he arrived. Their species was decreasing, and now he's sort of become this sort of de facto sky god to prevent them from going extinct. They look like bats, by the way. Tall, lanky bats, by the sound of it. So other Bobs are expanding throughout the universe, looking for other planets to colonize, because the 2 that they've got already is probably not enough to ensure the continuation of humans. Plus, there's a lot more humans on Earth than they think they're going to be able to have time to get off Earth in the colonization ships, which is another problem. In this expansion, they're looking out for the Brazilian replicant that they encountered in the first book, but what they actually come across is another species. another species that has the modus operandi of stripping all the metal and all the living matter off planets and leaving only dead things behind. So they come across a couple of planets that had obviously had intelligent life forms, but everything metal had been stripped and there was no living creatures. The conclusion has got to be that the metal is being taken and the animals and plants are food. And when they finally make contact with that species, it turns out that's true. This terrible species, determined on stripping all natural resources from the universe, they sound kind of insectoid. They have a hive mind mentality. And I'm not going to say too much more about them because the end of this book kind of goes into that contact between Bob and the hive, and that's kind of interesting. They also come across another species. They look like meerkats. That's kind of cute. I like meerkats. Many things about this book are really good. I like the way the tech is advancing all the time, but not too fast. And each Bob has his own project that he's working on, but they bounce opinions off each other and they're expanding their options. And that's what you'd expect if you've got a whole tribe of engineers, each started with similar ideas, but with time to work on their own projects. I like the Bob Moot. I like the VR in which they visit each other. I like the fact that even though they've got 3D printers that can print material at the molecular level, they've only got so many 3D printers and they've only got so much time. So that creates bottlenecks and supply tension, which is good because a story needs tension, but it needs to be manageable tension and it needs to be realistic. This one has very realistic tension and I enjoyed that. For We Are Many did not suffer to me. I know not everyone feels the same way, but to me this second book didn't suffer from the second book problems or the middle book that you see in trilogies or series. But the only problem with it is that because they're constantly expanding their numbers and they're throwing out names there, and some of them like Will Riker I get, but I don't think I get all the geeky references in here. I managed to get Homer for Homer Simpson, but I'm sure there's a lot more here that I don't get. Everyone's sci-fi Umwelt, if you will, is going to be a little bit different. And I think Bullwinkle, I got Bullwinkle and Rocky eventually, but it did take me a while. I've never watched that. I think it's an animated, yeah, it's definitely an animated series. So the more geekdom you have, the more sci-fi nerdiness you have, the more you're going to get out of this book. And because there are so many Bobs, it was very useful that at the back of this book, we've got a very helpful lineage. So we have the family tree of Bobs from the first Bob to all the replicants. That was very welcome. And the little bit of a description of what each Bob is up to and their name and stuff, that was also useful. It doesn't matter too much if you don't know exactly which Bob you've jumped to, because pretty shortly, the way the story is told, you'll know which story you're in on. But there are many stories. Because there are many Bobs, Taylor gets to do something a little wild and kind of fun, really. Instead of restraining himself to one or maybe two of the many wonderful sci-fi plots, tropes, experiences, journeys that you have out there in bookdom, in sci-fi-dom, bookdom and filmdom and series, all of the many wonderful options. Because there's so many Bobs, he can assign a type of story to a Bob. So you get many of the sci-fi. You've got the Dying Earth on one side, you've got the First Contact stories and more than one option on the other side, you've got the war in space happening over there. There's a whole heap of lots of stuff. And with the self-replicating, virtually immortal Bobs, he can do that and it's fun to read. These books are very fun to read. Not particularly fast to read for me because they do bounce from place to place and Bob to Bob quite fast. That slows me down. But they're enjoyable to read. You come to them with a sense of pleasure and lightheartedness and enjoyment. Now, I waited a fair amount of time before the first one. What was it called? It'll be here somewhere. We Are Legion. I had several books between We Are Legion and For We Are Many. I'm not going to do that this time. I think because there's so many bobs and so many plots, I'm actually quite invested in a couple of them. I'm going to go straight on to the third one, which is sitting on my coffee table, courtesy of Anna. The third one is called All These Worlds. I think it's called All These Worlds. Anyway, I'm going to go straight onto that one. It's around about the same depth, size, weight, gravitas of book that this one is, about 300 pages. Not a fast read, very enjoyable. Look forward to the next one. Tell me what you think of the Bobbyverse if you've read it. I gather that when this first came out, it was only available on audiobook, but it did so well that Dennis E. Taylor ended up publishing it as a real live Dead Tree book. I'm very grateful. I would definitely never have read it as an ebook. I just don't do that for fun. And I don't know when or if I would have got to the Audible. Apparently the Audible is very good and the narrator's good too. But I'm very grateful that they are in real paperback form. So yes, thank you for watching yet another book review of a science fiction. I think my next review might actually be for science fact instead of science fiction. Won't that be different? Have a great day. Comment, subscribe, all that sort of stuff if you feel like it. If you don't, thank you for watching anyway.